I'm happy to welcome Slawomir Gorniak here, and I would like to introduce you. I think you're here with us. Perfect. So Slawomir works at ENISA, the European Agency for Cybersecurity, and he is the telecommunications engineer focused on network security and standardization. He presents us the EUDI wallet certification. And Slawomir, before I hand over to you, dear audience, please use the chat to state questions to Slawomir, which I can ask or which you can ask as well by yourself after his presentation. Slawomir, I will leave the stage and the spotlight is on you, and we can see your presentation.
Yes, hello, I'm just sorry for this. I forgot to unmute myself, so I have to restart all the procedure.
We can see and hear you.
Okay, hello?
Perfect.
Can you hear me now well? Super, thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Slawomir Gorniak. As said already, I work for ENISA, which is the EU Agency for Cybersecurity. Well, we are dealing, among other stuff, with eIDAS-related issues. And the goal of today's presentation will be to acquaint you a little bit with what's going on in the potential certification of European wallets, so the European conception of the wallets that is introduced by eIDAS version 2. But just before this, just to give you a little bit of overview of actually where are we now and why we are talking about this, I would like to to show you a little bit where we are in general in legislative landscape when it comes to cybersecurity issues, of which eIDAS regulation, of course, is a big part. So, as you probably remember, not a long time ago, only a couple of years ago, the landscape of European cybersecurity legislation was really empty. That was a desert. There was nothing there. There was only our agency, so ENISA, that was charged with everything that concerned network and information security. At that time, we did not use the word cybersecurity. That was kind of reserved. And suddenly we started having some legislative acts that were popping here and there. We had, of course, the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, which is not per se cybersecurity related, but it's very connected to it. We had the first real cybersecurity legislation, that was the Network and Information Security Directive, that was introduced in all the member states of the European Union, and afterwards we just had the new version of the Network and Information Security Directive that was voted and published in the official journal of European Union, and will enter into force. Well, it entered into force, but its articles will enter into real force within 2 years. Since then, we observe a real proliferation of legislative acts that start really overlapping each other and interacting a lot. So from nothing, we came to the situation where actually each of these acts is a small part of the cybersecurity landscape. So we have, of course, the eIDAS regulation, that now we have the eIDAS regulation version 2 that is under discussions. I will talk about it a little bit later. We have the Cybersecurity Act. So this is something that was the EU Cybersecurity Act. That was something that was a game changer in Europe. In fact, its name does not fully say what it is, because basically the Cybersecurity Act is split into 2 parts. One concerns the re-establishment of ENISA, so the Agency for Cybersecurity, the agency where I'm working, and the second part sets up the frames for pan-European cybersecurity certification framework. So this is something very important, because all subsequent cybersecurity-related acts actually mention, maybe not all, but well, the spirit of these acts definitely mentions the provisions put in place by the certification framework under the Cybersecurity Act. So In the meantime, we have quite a lot of proposals. So not all of these acts that you see here on the screen are actually already in force. Some of them are still under discussions. Some of them are more easy to pass. Some others are more difficult. We have, for example, another very big act here is the Cyber Resilience Act, the CRA, that actually concerns all the possible elements connected to the internet. This will be another game changer when it comes to cybersecurity of European networks. But what I wanted to show you by this slide is that, well, the eIDAS regulation is not a regulation just alone from separated from others, because in all of these other acts, there are some parts that can affect products, services that concern also eIDAS regulation. Also, what is a common denominator of these acts is that they all underline the role of standards, meaning that all of them mention that, well, the real presumption of compliance with these regulations should be based on standards, and also that some of these requirements must be confirmed by certification, so by the certification under EU Cybersecurity Act, and the eIDAS Regulation version 2 definitely foresees it. So here is our eIDAS Regulation version 2. Of course, I'm sure that most of you know very well the content of the proposal. When it comes to the situation of this piece of legislation, for the moment it's under so-called trilogues. So the member states grouped in the council have already agreed on their version of eIDAS. Also, the European Parliament has its own proposal for changes in the proposal. And now under the Swedish presidency, there are talks having for goal to agree on the final version of eIDAS. We have hopes that the Swedish presidency will manage to achieve the final text until the end of their presidency, so until the end of June. If not, it will be taken by the next one. So this is really discussed at this very moment. So what are the main updates of this regulation with relation to the previous one? So firstly, that it introduces the European Digital Identity Wallet framework. So this is a new concept that has been introduced. We have also the proposal here for the recommendation for an EU toolbox for coordinated approach towards European digital identity framework. So it's not only digital identity wallet framework, but framework per se. And what I underlined here on this slide is that the regulation, the proposal of the regulation puts the certification of these wallets as one of the main points, certification under Cybersecurity Act. So, of course, there are some new qualified trust services, and well, there are some changes related to the application of ENISA Directive version 2. So some of the requirements stemming from eIDAS have been moved to ENISA Directive, but I will concentrate here on the certification of these wallets. So what is basically the proposal for this framework? So the wallet, the EU Digital Identity Wallet as a means of electronic identification under eIDAS has to be put under the level high. This is not the same level high as foreseen by the Cybersecurity Act, for example, and certification of that is foreseen by this regulation. But so this is like a first problem. Then there is the proposal puts a recommendation of member states to develop a toolbox, including a technical architecture and reference framework. And this is something that has been already done. Let's say, well, done in the first version. It puts a set of common standards and technical specifications, and also a set of common guidelines and best practices for the implementation of the framework. Now, the conformity of the wallets shall be certified. So again, this is something that is a requirement stemming from the regulation, and it is deemed that the certification of these wallets will ensure not only security, trust, and robustness of the wallet itself, but also will bring harmonization and interoperability of the wallet in various member states. Now, when it comes to certification, I will, of course, talk about it later in more detail, but this certification should rely as much as possible on the available schemes, certification schemes under Cybersecurity Act. We have, for the moment, 3 schemes that are being elaborated. So the first one is the EUCC, so on common criteria. The other one is on cloud services, EUCS, and then EU 5G on 5G. On 5G's, well, in general, standard services. So in practice, the certification should start basing on EUCC, as this is the only scheme that is for the moment almost available. It has not been yet published, but it's here. Although, of course, as we know, the common criteria has a lot of limitations when it comes to time, when it comes to money, and when it comes to various needs that common criteria requires. So the member states under the leadership of the Commission has established an expert group composed of experts coming from various member states that has developed this architecture and reference framework. It has been released in February under version 1.0.0. I wrote here already that there was an update to version 1.1.0 in April. In fact, it has not been yet published. So this document exists, but is not yet public, but probably should be very soon. Now, the goal of this reference framework, so the goal of this document was to provide specifications to develop interoperable wallet solutions. So basically, this is a kind of book with guidelines how this wallet should look like. Now, the thing is that the Commission is planning to give, let's say, a wallet developed for the Commission to the member states, but these states will be also able to develop their own solutions, and not only they will not be forced to use the one given by the Commission. So this document, so this ARF, how is it called, defines the European digital identity wallet ecosystem. For the moment, it contains, let's say, the main things on which the member states have agreed. It will be complemented later, and well, new versions will come out as when the member states will discuss, let's say, more and more issues. For the moment, the thing is that, well, there are some how to say, problems stemming by the situation, such that the legislation is not yet ready, meaning that we have only an idea of what is the wallet and how this wallet could work, but we don't have like full certitude how this wallet will look like in the final version of the regulation. So there were, even when developing this document, I also took part in some meetings of this expert group. They were concurring of visions, let's say, of the wallet. So we have now the situation where we almost know everything, but of course it will highly depend on what will be put in the final version of the regulation. So the RRF basically covers these parts, as you can see here. I will maybe not enter into details. I mean, my slides will be available afterwards, but it just mainly it covers all the interfaces and everything that is between, let's say, the providers of PIDs, of QEAs, and certificates, and the wallet interface itself. Now, as a big news, the Commission already started working on a certification scheme covering the digital identity wallet, and ENISA has received a request from the European Commission to start working on the potential scheme on the EU digital identity wallets. Now, this request is not a normal request for a cybersecurity certification scheme, like in the 3 other cases. This is basically a request to help starting thinking about such a scheme. So the request comes mainly it mainly asks to perform an analysis of actually which parts of the solutions already provided by the schemes on which we are working right now, so common criteria, 5G, common cloud services, can be used for the future digital identity wallet, to provide also a gap analysis and proposals of possible solutions where no parts of the previous scheme exist that could cover requirements of the wallet, to analyze the current state of play of European market, and basically to provide a document afterwards that could serve as the base of further work on a concrete scheme. The thing is here that well, normally if the eIDAS version 2 enters into force soon, it will probably need another 2 years to become fully operational, and this is a time frame that is very challenging to develop the full European cybersecurity certification scheme, meaning that we might not be on time. So also there is a proposal actually how to tackle this situation. Now, when it comes to technicalities, the cybersecurity certification scheme connected to the wallet is a very difficult case when it comes to practicalities. So the wallet can have like 3 main shapes, let's say. So one, it can be a mobile application, it can be a web application, it can be also a desktop application. So we already have 3 platforms, let's say 3 forms of the wallet. Each of these forms have their own security technologies that are using, and actually, well, you see on this slide 5 different let's say technologies that can be used for each of these each of these forms. Now, every wallet has components, and now when you speak about the component of the wallet, we have the software. Under software, we have operational system of the device on which it is working. It is the software of the wallet itself. We have the interfaces, and here we talk about all possible interfaces, so interfaces with databases, interfaces even with the screen on which the data are displayed, and so on. We have the primary hardware, so we have different types of telephones, we have different types of computers that can support the wallet. We have also secure elements. We have secondary hardware. Well, under secondary hardware, we have, for example, the cloud, data storage, and so on. And we have all the services. And now, all these components should be certified somehow in order to have the full certification of the wallet. This means that basically the number of entities that should be certified goes exponentially up. So even for a phone that has an operating system on them, we have tens of types of phones, if not hundreds, and so on and so forth. So the biggest problem with certification for the moment, to think about the certification of this, is how to group all these components and how to be able to provide a certification scheme that could cover all these elements. Now, ENISA in 2022, so last year, has proceeded with an assessment of standards in the area of digital identity. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, all the certification schemes should rely on standards, possibly European, if not international, and only then we could go to look for technical specifications that are not standards per se. So we have, well, the study will be actually out within 2 weeks from now, because it's already in the publishing process. But what we have discovered, let's say, when it comes to things that relate to the wallet itself, to the digital identity wallet, is that we have no standards for cryptographic device interfaces, and also only some parts of the wallet itself are already standardized. So functional testing requirements are missing, and these cryptographic device interfaces are missing. This is the most, let's say, most severe problem that we found. And there are no standards fulfilling the wallet needs in 100%, meaning that we can find pieces of requirements of the wallet that are repartitioned in various standards, but well, there's no one standard that would fit really the wallet. There are, however, some activities already undertaken that could cover quite a lot of parts of the wallet. So it's the draft of ISO IEC 23220 series that are targeting personal identity data for the digital wallet, and also ETSI, the group ESI, electronic signatures and infrastructures, are working very hard for 2 years now on the on further standardization of wallet-oriented entities. Now, what is mainly, again, what the certification schemes consist of is actually the what and the how. So basically what we are certifying and how, meaning how we do it. So we have the definition of the what somehow, so we only have some gaps there, but we don't have yet a clear view on how to make this happen. A small update of what ENISA is doing until now and what is going on in general in the certification world. So as I told you earlier, we have the 3 schemes on which we are working for some time already. So the first one, the EUCC. So it's based on common criteria. It's a kind of continuation of the former work performed by SOGIS. Basically, common criteria defines how to certify. So basically, for each entity certified, you have a protection profile, and then the what is defined by the owner itself, by the risk owner itself in this protection profile, and common criteria tell you how to certify it. And basically, this scheme is almost ready. This still waits to be published by the Commission. This is really in the last stage, and we are expecting the publication soon. Now, for the UCS, so it's a generic scheme for cloud services. It actually took a bit more of time than we expected to develop it, but actually last week it was handed to the Commission in the final draft. So basically now the consultations within the Commission will take place and with the member states. And this scheme actually now is kind of finished by ENISA. Of course, we will still make updates when it will be needed. And we are working at full speed on the EU 5G scheme, which actually is based mainly on standards provided by GSMA and 3GPP. So this third one, we expect that within this year we should come out with something tangible. Of course, this highly depends also on the level of common understanding between various parties participating in drafting of these schemes. So, as my final slide is actually what is being proposed at this moment as a certification process, as the proposal for a scheme covering the European Digital Identity Wallet. So as I mentioned earlier, we have probably, if the law is passed now, we will have 2 years to develop a scheme. And here, a good solution that we are thinking about is a transition scheme. So basically, this will be something based on the EUCC, on the common criteria, and only some extended version of this scheme will be needed, meaning that some more documents, more protection profiles will need to be created for this. And for cybersecurity requirements not covered by this scheme, and also for non-cybersecurity requirements coming from the regulation, then it's possible to use pure ISO IEC 17065. Now, that will be, as I said, only the first step. Afterwards, we will proceed with the work on a concrete dedicated Cybersecurity Act scheme for the wallet. And here, again, we cannot launch already this work before the full specifications of the wallet are available. And these full specifications of the wallet will be available firstly after the law is passed, and secondly, after the new version of the architecture and reference document is produced. Then we can start the real work on the scheme. So basically, I think I left you with more questions than solutions. I just wanted to draw your attention, let's say, on the complexity, how this, how difficult it is to approach this this scheme for the digital identity wallet. So, as a main, let's say, takeaway message is that the biggest issue at this moment is to figure out how to make the certification simpler and not, well, not to have this big beast of certifications and how to group the various entities taking part in the wallet into packs that will be a little bit more easy to develop something good for the community. So thank you very much for your attention, and should there be any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Thank you, Slawomir. I think you really managed to show us the complexity, and I can imagine that it's getting more and more complex, and there are some questions, and there are indeed some questions in the chat. One explicitly states something about complexity, and that it seems that there are still a lot of undefined questions and issues. And the question is, what do you recommend to someone who is supposed to roll out the ID check now in Europe for different applications? What's your recommendation for them?
Well, that's for the moment. I mean, okay, that goes beyond a little bit what is the topic of the wallet itself. I have no good answer for this.
Okay, then I think we are able to work on this together for the future and try to manage to find a way through this. You said everything is a little bit complicated, but can we already estimate when the work on dedicated certification schemes will start, or is it really just an open question?
So basically, when it comes to the development of the final scheme, we can say that, well, probably when we have this first approach that we are working on right now finalized, meaning that when our gap analysis of what's available in the market is done, we will have already well, something tangible to start developing the scheme, but we need to wait for the eIDAS regulation itself. So basically, I would estimate that once the new eIDAS is published, so we will need additional half year, let's say, for working on the requirements, and then we can start the work on developing the concrete scheme. Of course, we will need to check if there is still a question of working on this transitional scheme or not, or maybe we can just launch ourselves in the work on the new scheme. Okay,
thank you. One last question. Besides cybersecurity certifications, will there be also UX certifications for the EUDI as well, or not?
UX?
User experience certifications.
That's also beyond our. Okay. This is beyond our scope. I mean, beyond the ENISA scope in this respect. So.
Okay. So. Haluk, you asked you stated the question, so there will be other persons responsible. Okay, one final question because we're now to the end, but it's an easier one. Would you mind sharing the presentation with us for our audience? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I will send it to you.
Very much.
Thank you very much for being with you. It was really a pleasure, and goodbye.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.